Hey, welcome into the Thursday edition of the Fun Astrology Podcast, April 9th. Thomas Miller, thanks for joining us. Going to be quick today because there's not just a whole heck of a lot going on. We talked yesterday about the moon moving into Scorpio, and I did find one thing. There's nothing else going on today. There are no movements, changes of signs. The next big one will be Saturday. Well, the moon goes into Sagittarius tomorrow, and then Mercury moves into Aries while you're asleep in the northern hemisphere, probably 12:43 a.m. Saturday morning Eastern Time. Mercury moves into Aries. So we won't make that the focus of today, but I did find one interesting thing that I thought I might just put out there. So yesterday, Bernie Sanders ended his presidential bid. I thought, that's interesting. Wonder what the sky looked like around that time. Now, this was just prior to the announcement, certainly not the decision, right? The decision would have been, I'm sure, days, if not weeks prior to this. But right about the hour when he was making that decision, the moon was void of course in Libra at about 26 degrees. So it's almost like we had this long void of course moon through the whole day. And again, you know that this was drafted certainly in the days before. But it's just interesting that at that very moment, the moon had gone void of course a couple hours before, no energy in it at all, the balloon was empty, and at that moment, he relinquished his campaign. Now, to really do this more astrological justice, you'd need to do an analysis with the transits and the progressions and his natal birth chart, which I haven't even looked at. I'm just looking at the weather of yesterday at that time, observing what it was like. That's all, not trying to do an in-depth astrological read. I did look up and see that Bernie Sanders is a Virgo. I didn't realize that before. Thought that was interesting. If you had bet me Virgo or Aquarian and you were going to take Virgo, I would have loaded the bucket and you would have walked away with all of my money. Or I would have said Aries. That would be the other one. I think Aries, that big projection. And I find it interesting that, again, on the other side of that empty Libran moon is Aries. Now, I was looking at one other thing, and on the chart at that time, the sun was in the 11th house and the moon was in the 5th house. We don't talk about houses a lot here because, of course, they change all through the day. But I just found it interesting that here was this big, very Mars energy campaign and individual who gives up his campaign, void of course moon, in Libra, a sign of about people, a sign of networking, a sign of tribe. And on the other side of that is the 11th house, which is the house of people and the tribe, and was kind of the basis of his campaign message. Now, I'm totally politically agnostic here, but Bernie Sanders' message does fit a lot of astrology. It fits the Aquarius model that we're moving into, and there are some other things that Majan and I actually learned in this astrology conference that we did 2 weekends ago that gets into some eye-crossing stuff as far as understanding, so I'm not going to go into the details of it. But vibrationally, when you look at Neptune and Pluto and the synchronicity of those two planets, there are some amazing things you can do to see culturally kind of where the world's vibrational energy is according to their vibration at that time. And that also fits the Bernie Sanders. Actually, it goes back to Donald Trump, too. It's disruptive of the norm, about the best way to say it. Globally or macro, or like we talk about the astrological weather here, that energy came to forefront around 2015, 2016. So there's the presidential election. And it continues all the way into the early 2000s, like 2023. So we will see, but according to that particular one slice of looking at the whole pie, that would not bode well for the remaining candidate, Joe Biden. And it is kind of a head-scratcher as far as why Bernie Sanders dropped out without even at least going to a convention. See, he didn't check with me. They never called, or if they did, my spam blocker blocked it. But I would have told the Sanders campaign, and again, I'm politically agnostic, but I would have told them if they had hired me as an astrologer, I would have said, no, you probably ought to hang in there. And of course, that's again without looking at anything of the other charts. But I know where we're headed. And I know that disruptive message, and I'm saying that disruptive as any kind of social disruption, that socially disruptive message is a message that is going to gain traction. It will gain some traction when Saturn moves into Aquarius next year. That will be after the election that this energy really kicks in. And it will really kick in 2024 when Pluto moves into Aquarius. So it's definitely an unfolding long-term game, but this Neptune-Pluto affiliation, if you will, tracking, also points to that we are in it now, and that energy does continue for several more years. Anyway, I didn't mean for this to totally turn to politics, but I didn't have anything else to talk about. So we'll find some more for tomorrow. Tomorrow is, like I said, tomorrow the moon moves into Sag, but then Saturday we've got a big change when Mercury moves into Aries. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Have a great day. I'll see ya. Bye.